Hello friends, how are you all? I hope you're doing well, and I hope tonight finds you somewhere comfortable, somewhere warm, somewhere safe. Welcome to Dark Hearts and Wild Tales, the place where stories are told slowly, softly, just for you. Tonight I want to share something a little different, a little quieter, a little more mysterious. Tonight I will gently retell The Oval Portrait, a haunting and beautiful little story, written by Edgar Allan Poe. It is the story of a traveler who rests inside an old and forgotten mansion and discovers on its walls a painting so lifelike, so breathtaking, that he cannot look away. And the story behind that painting is one that will stay with you long after you have drifted off to sleep. So come, find your most comfortable position. Let your shoulders drop, let your hands rest, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow this quiet story to carry you gently into the night. And if you enjoy stories like this one, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel so that more soft stories are always waiting for you whenever you need them. Now, let us begin. The night had been long, and the road had been longer. He had been riding for many hours through the dark and winding countryside. And by the time the mansion appeared through the trees, he was exhausted, deeply, completely exhausted. His name does not matter much. He was simply a traveler, a man moving through the world with no particular urgency, just moving the way people sometimes move when they are not quite sure where they are going, but they keep going anyway. His companion was with him, a quiet man who spoke little and observed much. Together they had ridden through the evening, watching the sky go from pale gold to deep gray to the particular kind of black that the countryside makes when there are no lamps and no houses, and nothing but trees and silence for miles in every direction. When the mansion appeared, it appeared the way things appear in that kind of darkness, suddenly and completely, as if it had always been there, waiting, and had simply decided at that moment to let itself be seen. It was large, much larger than you would expect in such a remote and forgotten place. Its walls were old stone, dark with years, its windows tall and narrow, most of them dark. One or two showing the faintest suggestion of light, not warm light, not welcoming light, just light, evidence that the building was not entirely dead. They stopped their horses and looked at it for a moment, neither of them speaking. The wind moved through the trees around them, a soft sound, like breathing, like the night itself, breathing slowly, and the mansion stood before them, still and patient as if it had been waiting a very long time for someone to arrive. They went inside. The door opened more easily than expected, as if the hinges had been oiled recently, or as if the house itself wanted them in. Inside, the air was different, cooler, heavier, carrying the particular quality of air that has been enclosed for a long time. The air of rooms that have not been opened, that have held their breath through many seasons, through many years. The hallway was wide, the floor was dark wood, the walls were hung with things, paintings, tapestries, mounted objects, all of it dim in the low light, all of it old, the kind of old that accumulates slowly without effort, the way dust accumulates, the way silence accumulates in rooms that no one visits anymore. His companion found candles and lit them, and the light pushed back the dark a little, just enough to move through the rooms without feeling entirely blind. They chose a room toward the back of the house, a large room with heavy curtains, a fireplace cold and dark, and walls covered from floor to ceiling in paintings. The traveler looked at the paintings, briefly, his eyes moving over them, in the candlelight, shapes and colors, faces and landscapes, things he was too tired to properly see. He settled onto a low couch near the wall and pulled a cover over himself and closed his eyes and tried to sleep. But sleep would not come. Not yet. His mind was still moving, the way minds do, after a long day, still processing the road, the dark, the cold, the sudden appearance of the mansion. He lay there in the quiet, listening to the house, which was not entirely silent. Old houses are never entirely silent. They speak in small ways. The creak of a beam settling, the soft knock of a shutter, the faint movement of air through unseen gaps, small patient sounds that old buildings make as if reminding you that they are alive, in their own way, that they have been here long before you, and will be here long after. He opened his eyes, he looked at the ceiling. The candlelight made patterns there, soft and moving. Like water, like something breathing. He reached beside him and found a small book. He had not noticed it before. It had been resting on a low table near the couch, as if placed there for exactly this purpose. He opened it. The pages were thin and slightly yellowed. The kind of pages that feel like they might tear if you turn them too quickly. He turned them slowly. The book appeared to be a record of some kind, a catalogue of the paintings in the house, descriptions of each one, brief notations, names, dates, small observations. He looked up at the walls. He decided to look at the paintings properly. Now that he had the book, now that sleep was not coming, now that he had the candle and the quiet and nothing else to do, he looked at one, then another, moving the candle slightly to see each one better. They were extraordinary, every one of them. The painter, whoever had made these works, had been someone of tremendous skill. The faces were so real, so present, you almost expected them to blink, to breathe, to turn slightly, and look at you directly. He moved the candle from painting to painting, reading a few words from the book, then looking at the image, then reading again, and the house was quiet around him, and the night was deep outside, and the wind moved softly in the trees, and he was alone in the candlelight, with all those painted faces, looking down at him from every wall. He moved the candle to a part of the room he had not yet examined, a corner where the wall turned and the light had not quite reached before. And there, in that corner, he saw it. It was not a large painting. It was set in an oval frame, dark wood, ornate but not ostentatious, the kind of frame that exists to contain something, rather than to draw attention to itself. He moved the candle closer. The light fell on the painting, and he stopped. He simply stopped. The way you stop when something catches you completely, when your feet stop moving and your breath pauses, and your whole body just waits. It was a portrait of a young woman, just her head and shoulders, emerging from a background so dark it seemed to have no depth at all. Just darkness, absolute and soft, like night itself, like the space behind stars. And from that darkness, she emerged. Her face was turned slightly, not quite toward you, not quite away, somewhere between, as if she had just heard something, and was just beginning to turn, just beginning to look, and you had caught her. In that exact moment, in that exact breath, between not looking and looking. Her hair was dark and fell softly. Her eyes were... He looked at them for a long time. Her eyes were alive. That was the only word for it. Alive. Not painted alive, not the impression of life, but actual life, actual presence. As if someone was there behind those eyes, as if someone was looking back at him from inside the frame. From inside the canvas, from somewhere on the other side of the paint. He stood very still for a long time. He did not move, did not speak. He simply looked, and she looked back, or seemed to. The candlelight moved slightly, and her expression seemed to shift with it, just barely, just at the edge of perception, enough to make him unsure whether he had imagined it or not. He took a slow breath. He made himself look away. He looked down at the small book in his hands. He found the page, he found the description of the oval portrait, and he began to read. The story in the book began simply, as stories sometimes do, before you understand what they are really about. It said that the painting had been made by a man who was both a painter and a husband. He was passionate about his art, the way some people are passionate about the things they love most. Completely, without reservation, without the ability to do it any other way. His whole life moved around his painting, the way a river moves, around the thing it is always returning to. His wife was young and very beautiful, and she loved him truly, the way people love when they are young and have not yet learned to protect themselves. She loved him with her whole heart, without holding anything back. She gave him everything, her attention, her companionship, her patience, her time. But the painter, he was always in his studio. He was always working, always with the brushes, the canvases, the light arranged just so, the hours disappearing into the work. She did not resent him for it. That was the thing. She loved him too much to resent him. She understood, the way only people who truly love someone can understand, that the thing you love about a person is often also the thing that takes them away from you. She sat for him, sometimes in the studio, watching him work on other paintings, watching his hands move, watching his eyes move between the canvas and the world, with that particular focus, that concentration, that made him look as if he were somewhere else entirely, even when he was right beside her. One day, he asked her to sit for him. He wanted to paint her portrait. He had painted many people, many faces, but he had not yet painted hers. She agreed, of course. She would have agreed to anything he asked. She sat in the studio, in a particular chair, in a particular light. The way he arranged her, carefully, the way he arranged everything. With that same focused attention, he began to paint. The days passed slowly, one after another. She sat, and he painted. The studio was a tall room with high windows, through which the light fell in long, pale columns, shifting through the day as the sun moved. She could see the light changing. From where she sat, could feel the hours moving. The morning light, different from the afternoon light, different again from the evening light. That soft, amber, tired light that comes at the end of a day, when everything is winding down. She sat very still, because that was what he needed. She sat with her hands folded and her face composed and her eyes in the direction he had asked, and she watched him work, and she loved him. Quietly, without saying much, just loving him, the way you love someone, when words seem insufficient, when all you can do is be there, and hope that being there is enough. He painted every day for many weeks. He was consumed by it, more consumed than she had ever seen him before any other painting. There was something about this one, something that gripped him, that would not let him rest. He woke early and went straight to the studio. He worked through the afternoon without eating. He worked by candlelight in the evenings, long after she had grown tired, long after her eyes had begun to close. She sat and tried to stay awake because he needed her there. Because the painting was not finished, and he could not finish it without her. The room was often cold. Old studios in old houses, with high windows, hold the cold in a particular way. It sits in the corners, it moves along the floor, it finds you, no matter how still you sit. She did not complain. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and sat and watched him, and the light moved through the windows, and the hours passed, and the painting grew. He did not look at her much. While he worked, he looked at the canvas, he looked at the canvas, and he looked at the canvas, and occasionally he looked at her, briefly, precisely, the way a craftsman looks at a material, assessing, measuring, comparing, and then returning to the work. She understood this. She did not take it personally. She knew this was how he was, when the work had him. She had seen it before, with other paintings, other subjects. She had watched him disappear into the work. And she had always waited, knowing he would come back, knowing that when the painting was done, he would set down the brush and look at her, and she would have him back. She waited. She always waited. The weeks became something longer. Time moved strangely in that studio. The light came and went, came and went. She grew pale, not dramatically, not suddenly, just gradually, the way color leaves things, slowly, slowly, over time, without announcing itself, without asking, just leaving. She grew quieter too. She had always been gentle, but now she was quieter, more inward, as if some of her had gone somewhere and not come back. She still smiled when he looked at her, those rare moments when he looked directly at her and not at the canvas. She still smiled, and it was still a real smile, even if it was smaller than before, even if it cost something to make it. He did not notice. He was so deep in the work, so consumed, so entirely given over to the painting, that he did not see what was happening right in front of him, right beside him, right there, in the chair, under the high windows, in the cold, in the shifting light. He did not see because he was looking at the canvas, and the canvas was becoming more alive, with every passing day, more vivid, more present, more real, as she became less so. The painting was almost done. He could feel it, the way painters feel when a work is nearing its completion, a particular tension in the air, a sense of something being finalized, something being decided. He worked with great care in those final days, with great precision, every small detail, every delicate thing did too. She sat, very still, very pale. She was tired, deeply tired, the kind of tired that sleep does not fix, the kind of tired that lives somewhere deeper than the body. But she sat because he needed her, because the painting was almost done, because she loved him. One morning, he worked for many hours without stopping, without speaking, without looking up. The light came through the windows and moved across the floor, and she watched it. The way you watch something, when watching is all you have left, when the body has become very quiet and the mind has become very soft, and all you can do is watch and breathe and wait. He was working on the eyes. That was the last thing. The eyes. He worked slowly, with tremendous care, with the finest brush, adding the last small touches, the last small lights, the last small life. He leaned back and looked at what he had made. He looked at the portrait, at the eyes. He looked for a long time, not moving, not breathing, just looking. And then he said, quietly, to no one in particular, to the room, to the air, to the light. He said, "This is life itself. This is truly life." He said it with the reverence of someone who has made something they cannot entirely explain, something that has exceeded what they intended, something that has gone beyond the maker. He turned from the canvas to look at her, to share the moment with her, to show her what he had done. He turned, and she was very still, very pale, very quiet. He looked at her, and the light fell across her face, and her eyes were closed, and she was gone. The traveler set down the book, very slowly. He set it on the table beside him, and he looked at the oval portrait, in its dark frame, in the corner, in the candlelight. He looked at the eyes, those living eyes that looked back at him, from inside the painting, from inside the dark. He understood now what he was looking at. He understood why those eyes seemed alive, why they seemed to hold something, something that paint alone cannot hold. He sat with that understanding for a long time, not disturbed, not frightened, just still, just quiet. The way you are still when something true has just been placed gently in your hands. The candle burned beside him, its light soft and steady. The house was quiet, all those painted faces, all around him, on every wall, looking out from their frames in the warm, shifting light. He looked at each of them, slowly, differently than before. He looked at each face and thought about the person who had sat in a particular chair, in a particular light, on a particular day, and held still, and been seen and been kept in this way for this long. He looked at the oval portrait one more time, last of all. Her face was exactly as it had been, still and beautiful, her expression between not looking and looking, her eyes, those living eyes. He held the gaze for just a moment longer, and then, gently, he looked away. He lay back on the couch, he pulled the cover over himself, he looked at the ceiling where the candlelight was making its soft patterns. The house was very quiet now. The wind outside had stilled, the trees were motionless. He closed his eyes, and the darkness behind them was soft and warm and full of nothing in particular, just rest. He thought about the painter and the painting and the woman in the chair, but only softly. The way you think about things when you are almost asleep, when thoughts lose their edges and become more like feelings, more like shapes, more like the impression of things than the things themselves. He thought about the light in the studio, that long, pale light falling through high windows, the way it moved through the day, slow and unhurried. He thought about the sound of a brush moving across a canvas, a soft, dry, patient sound. He thought about sitting very still in a quiet room while someone looked at you and tried to keep you, to hold the moment, to stop time. The way people have always tried to stop time and never can, and always try again anyway. He breathed slowly in and out. The candle burned lower. He was not thinking anymore, not quite, just drifting. Just lying in the quiet old room, in the quiet old house, while the night settled around him, like something soft, like something patient, like something that had been waiting a very long time for him to simply lie down and rest. The oval portrait was still in its dark frame, in its corner, the eyes looking the way they always looked, the way they had always looked, for so many years, for so many nights, while the house stood still, and the garden was dark, and the road outside was empty, and the rooms held their quiet, and the candles burned, one by one, down to their ends, and the light grew smaller and softer, and the darkness came a little closer, but gently, always gently. The way darkness comes, when there is nothing to fear, when the night is safe and the house is still, and everything that needed to happen has already happened, long ago. In a room with high windows, and a man with a brush, and a woman who loved him, and sat very still and let herself be kept. The traveler slept, deeply and dreamlessly, the way you sleep when the body has finally given up its long resistance, and the mind has finally let go of its last remaining thought, and the night has wrapped itself around you like a hand placed gently over something precious and sleeping and safe. Outside, the trees were still, the garden was dark, the road was empty. The moon, wherever it was, moved slowly through the sky, doing what moons do, quietly, without fuss. The house breathed the way old houses breathe, in small sounds and small movements, in the patient language of things that have simply endured. And on the wall in the corner, in the dark, the oval portrait was still, perfectly, beautifully still. The eyes open, the face turned between not looking and looking, as it had always been, as it would always be, caught in that one quiet, breathless moment forever. And slowly, the candle on the table burned down, lower and lower, until the flame was very small, a tiny warm point in the wide dark, and then it leaned just slightly, as if tired, and the light softened, and the room became darker and quieter and warmer, and everything in it, the paintings, the faces, the oval portrait, the sleeping traveler, the old walls, the high ceiling, the cold fireplace, all of it rested together in the same soft, patient dark, and the night outside was everything. It has always been vast and quiet and full of nothing but stars and wind and the sound of the world breathing slowly in and out and in and out, and everything was still and everything was dark and everything was gentle and close and safe. If you enjoyed this quiet little journey into the candlelight and the old house and the painting on the wall, then come back. Whenever the night feels long, whenever you need somewhere soft to rest your mind. Subscribe to this channel, and more stories just like this one will always be waiting for you, right here, in the dark, in the quiet, whenever you need them.